Hey there, everybody, and welcome back to the Weekly Grizzle. I'm your host, Grumpy Gus, and this will be episode 2. Before we dive into it, I do have a little bit of housekeeping. I have a new logo made by my lovely wife, Mufa Poofa Throws. For those who have been watching on YouTube, you've already seen this logo, but I had previously recorded episode 1 before I had the logo and before I started uploading to YouTube. So I had re-uploaded that with the logo, but this is the first official announcement of that logo. I think my wife knocked it right out of the park. I love it so much. I asked her to make me one, and she took the time and drew it out by hand. She is amazing. So if you could give her a like and a follow, subscribe to her, I'll put all of her information down below. She does a lot of art streams, gaming streams. She loves to play Overwatch and games like that. Super fun to watch her play. She just has fun with it. She does a lot of retro kind of like point and shoot kind of thing. So she just kind of points her camera at what she's doing and records it, which is really kind of cool. So give her a like, give her a subscribe, go watch her. That would be great. But now for why you're all here. So after my first episode, I got a little bit of feedback, and it seems that it was a little bit too clinical. What I normally do, or well, not normally because this is my second episode, but what I did in the first one was I made a script, kind of wrote down my thoughts, and went from there. And I guess it felt a little bit too much Gus, not enough Grump, not enough Grizzle. So we're just gonna go off script. Fuck it. We're just gonna go with it and see what happens, and just have fun with it. So to get into it, I got my start with D&D back in 2005. I was sitting in the cafeteria in high school with a bunch of my friends during lunch, and a buddy of mine pulls out of his bag this crazy looking hardcover book, and it was crazy because it really kind of looked like a magical tome. Um, it had this artwork. It looked like it was all rusted, and there were like hinges and this like lock with a sword and a book on it. And it was the Dungeons and Dragons Player Handbook, Core Rulebook 1, version 3.5. And I remember ruffling through it and ruffling through the pages, and it was it was just magic to me. It opened up a portal to a whole new world. Like I had played a lot of RPGs at that point, your Final Fantasy VII, that sort of thing. Wonder Boy and Monster World on the Sega. Any of you OGs know that? It's a very obscure one, so you might not. But yeah. Beyond that, just flipping through the pages, every page turn was crazy. Just seeing the ability modifier charts. I remember flipping through and seeing the choosing a race page, which is chapter 2, and just seeing the different races in their hand drawn format: the human, the halfling, the gnome, half orc, dwarf, half elf, and elf. Just seeing them drawn to scale of each other. It was just insane how much this world just opened up, and it was super fun to get into. It really did feel like I was opening a portal into another world. I was holding a magic tome, and it blew my mind. The first character I ever made, and this stick with me because we did a lot of stupid shit back then, and we didn't know what the hell we were doing. I made a Rakshasa Archmage because why the hell not? Why not just start your character at epic levels for shits and giggles? Because we had no idea what the hell we were doing. So I'm sitting there, and I've got my Rakshasa Archmage, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing, as I've just said about 15 times. And my DM says, before you appears this grayish blob. And we roll initiative and do everything, and I end up being up first. And I was just like, you know what? I'm going to cast Wall of Fire. Because, yeah, why not? Wall of Fire. Have fun. It looked like a cool spell, so I'm just casting it. And he does the math, and to this day, I still really haven't looked up whether this was really the proper way to do it. Probably wasn't, but He's just like, yeah, with the way that that spell scales, you just burn down the entire countryside. Like, oh crap, that's not good. And he's like, yeah, but you can shape the spell. So we made it into a essentially a cylinder around the creature. But being a gray ooze, it just kind of passed through the wall of fire because it's immune to fire. And that was my first combat experience in D&D. And from that point on, I kind of wanted to learn the rules so I could learn how to break them properly. And I just became a terror to any potential DM I'd ever have. Not that I had that many of them because I didn't really have a, like we didn't really have friends that would play D&D. The schedules never aligned and all that, and the books were always kind of expensive and stuff, but it got more into a private passion of making characters. And I would try to make the most powerful characters that I could make, but I wanted to make them entirely within the rules. You know how there's things like the famous pun and other things like that, and that one way to make the Hellfire Warlock where you had that one disease that I can't remember off the top of my head, but if you survived the disease, you were immune to the Constitution damage. I didn't like things like that. I liked making a character that could basically not require the DM to bend the rules or break the rules because I didn't have an active DM at that point. And I just wanted to make these characters. So I would try to make the most fucked up and crazy character I could make, the most powerful character I could make, using the rules as they were written. So, and actually, you know what? I'd say as intended because I honestly I don't think that that whole disease thing was intended to allow for the Hellfire Warlock thing. That just seems like a little crap. But I digress. I ended up making things like I had a Thrycreen Gish, and a Thrycreen is a creature. It's a bug creature with 4 arms, and using a bunch of the obscure third edition rules, I was able to make it an epic level character that had a crap ton of attacks, and it would be able to make full attack bonus attacks with every single one of its weapons, or with every single one of its arms. It involved using a class called Swiftblade, which came from the Web of Magic sourcebook. Swiftblades use haste as a free action. The whole idea behind the class is that this is a wizard that has gone so much into the haste spell that it's permanently changed their relationship to that spell. They get permanent haste based effects. Like they've cast haste on themselves so much that it's just been absorbed into their bodies. They can move faster even when they don't have haste activated. They can um, attack faster, that sort of thing. Um, but it allowed you to use haste as a free action, which was a cool thing. So here's this character dancing around the field. I also made it a dervish, which allowed for a bunch of fun attacks per turn and everything. And it just ended up being a essentially a Ginsu. It sliced, it diced, it made julienne fries. And anybody that gets that reference, you rock. But there probably won't be a lot of people that do. Um, but yeah, that was a really fun thing to do. As I got older, I started making more fun characters rather than just the most overpowered character that you can think of. One character that comes to mind is Tunk Thunk. He was a level 1 rogue that let's see, he was a level 1 dwarf rogue, and he got hit in the head really really hard, and it kind of knocked his noggin around. It made him a little simple, and every time that he really tried to get into that mindset of I got to be sneaky, I got to do this, it reminded him of that failed attempt to disarm a trap which caused a boulder to fall on his head. So he was inducted into a very rare brotherhood, the Battle Ragers. And for those who don't know what Battle Ragers are, they are a type of dwarf barbarian that gets a very special Spiked armor. It's based off of a character from the Forgotten Realms series called Pwent. He was a dwarf that belonged to the Battle Ragers. He was from the Brunor clan of Brunor Battlehammer, and he had this very special armor that was made out of various different spiked plates and things like that. That would when he would fight an enemy, he would essentially run into them and gyrate until they fell to pieces, and that was what the battle rangers did. And even went so far as to say that he didn't bathe and would grease himself up to act as lubricant for his armor so that it would, move around. All the plates would shift around. In fifth edition, they kind of simplified it to more of like a spiked armor. So here's this dwarf barbarian, rogue barbarian, that can no longer really be sneaky because anytime he tries to do that, it just throws him into a rage. Now, on the mechanical side of things, this is where the character gets really kind of stupid. Rogues get sneak attack when they have advantage, and barbarians can force advantage as long as all attacks against them are taken with advantage. So essentially, what Tunk Thunk does is he walks up to you and he says, "You no see Tunk Thunk hit you now," and he would just essentially hug his enemies to death and get sneak attack damage for it. I mean, he would punch them. He wouldn't try to. He'd try to grapple them afterwards, but he'd get the sneak attack damage from essentially beating the shit out of them with his spiked armor. It was just a really fun, stupid character. But things like that is kind of what I evolved into, is making hilarious characters, making the still doing the power gaming thing, but from more of a standpoint of I want to have fun with this character. I want to create a fun, cool character background and just roll with it. If you forgive the terrible pun there, that was, I want to say it was intended, but it really wasn't. That was just me being bad at what I do. So yeah. Um yeah, so that's essentially where I'm at nowadays. I'm doing a lot more DMing, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But one of the things I do want to talk about is how D&D's kind of evolved over the years. It started with essentially Dungeons and Dragons, which was kind of more of an introductory sort of thing, where it covered the first few levels of the game. It was kind of more for the younger players to get into, and then you have Advanced D&D, which added more complex rules like THACO and things like that, and it it kind of it expanded the rules. So that's basically where D&D really got to start, Advanced D&D. And if you're wondering what THACO is, it's shorthand for to hit AC 0. And this is kind of a precursor to um, armor class. It's a descending armor class scale where a lower armor class meant that the character was harder to hit. I'm going to read this from a wiki page because it gets complicated real fast. So each player and character in Monster, or each player character in Monster has a statistic known as THACO, which is calculated based on their level or hit dice. Against an opponent with an armor class of 0, you must roll equal to or above your own THACO on a 20-sided die in order to score a hit. So, for example, a character with a THACO of 14 must roll between 14 and 20 on a d20 to hit an opponent with an AC of 0. If your opponent has 6 AC, which is more likely because it's very unlikely that an opponent has an armor class of 0, that's just a baseline. If they have an AC of 6 and you roll, you will hit between 8 and 20. 14 minus 6 equals 8. Now, where it gets real complicated is THACO doesn't just go down to 0. No, 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 no. I mean, well, AC doesn't just go down to, well, THACO doesn't either, but AC just doesn't just go down to 0, my friends. It goes into negative numbers. So, If you have an AC of -6, you do 14 minus -6. And due to the whole transitive property crap of math, you're actually adding. So you add 6 to 14, and you suddenly can now only hit on and a 20. You can only hit on a 20. So kind of screwed if your enemy has a negative. And that can get a little complicated for people. I mean, it can get a little complicated for me in my head. I'm terrible at doing math in my head. Don't tell my bosses. I'm sorry. Just don't fly on planes. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, I have nothing to do with planes anymore. But nah, don't worry about it. Anyway, yeah, Thaco can get a little confusing. But then we moved on to 3.5, third edition, and then 3.5, which came out a little bit afterwards, which was sort of an updated edition with player feedback, and it really expanded the rule set. They moved into things just a straight AC chart. Um, oh, this is interesting. So on the just to get back to Thaco for a minute, on the website I'm using, there's an old chart from the book, and I'll actually throw this up in the video so that you guys can see this because this is really cool. It shows it's attack matrix for fighters, paladins, rangers, bards, and 0 level halflings and humans. Um, and it shows your opponent armor class and 20-sided die score to hit by level of attacker. So it goes from -10 to +10. And then it goes from 0, 1 to 2, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, all the way up to 17 plus. So, for example, a level 0 fighter, paladin, ranger, and bard. Or I'm sorry, yeah, level 0 of any of these people. Um, to hit an AC of 0, their Thaco, or the score to hit it would have to be 20, as you can see in the middle of this chart. When they get up to, say, about set level 7 to 8, they need to roll a 14 or better. Um, and then all the way up to 17 plus, it's a 4 to better. But as you can see, as it gets up to like 10, a level 0 fighter, paladin, ranger, bard, or halfling or human, if the opponent has a 10 AC, which is more likely for the lower classes, you have to roll an 11 or better. But if they have a -10, which you should never, ever, ever face at level 0, you essentially can't hit them. You'd have to get a 26. It's a very weird system. But I like this chart, so I'm going to save that and throw that up there for you guys if I can. I'm just using dungeonsanddragons.fandom.com. It's a good source, but it's yeah, it's a thing from it's a chart from AD&D Dungeon Master's Guide, first edition from 1979. Imagine that. God, this game's been around for a long time. But back to what I was saying before I got distracted. Um, this we moved down to third edition and 3.5, and the rules kind of expanded a lot. They simplified in terms of you didn't really need to look up everything on a chart. You could say, hey, my AC is 15. All right, you have to beat a 15 by rolling a d20 and adding your modifiers to it. That's it. Simple, straight, gotta love it. Pathfinder went with a little bit of a different system, but that's Pathfinder, and we'll talk about that in a completely different episode. But for 3.5, it also expanded upon the settings and the world. There were more races, there were more creatures, there were more classes, there were prestige classes, all sorts of different fun things for young, impressionable minds like mine to latch onto and just explore. And then we moved on to fourth edition. And fourth edition, personally, I think was a failed edition. Fourth edition sort of kind of put training wheels on everyone. It started in 2007 and lasted about 2012. And according to Google AI, it's known for its strong focus on tactical combat and structured, balanced mechanics. Um, but it's also criticized for being too board gamey. And that's actually a pretty good way to describe it, if less eloquent than it could be. What fourth edition tried to do was I think it tried to open it up to more people, which is essentially what D&D's kind of tried to do with every successive edition. 3.5 was a great way to blow the game wide open. Like it was like the Wild West. There were so many different possibilities. Everything was going crazy, but 4th edition scaled it back a lot. But I think the idea was to make it more accessible for newer players. 4th edition, um, it's sort of like I said before, it really put the training wheels on. You had it was the first iteration of a character, what we would today that use Roll20, we would call it the character mancer. So there was a character builder, and Wizards, the company that owns D&D, created a character creation um platform on their website, and players that would play in official games are actually encouraged to use this thing. And it really was there to help you build your character. But the reason it worked so well was because 4th edition kind of limited you on your choice. You had tracks for each class that you could go down, and each race and all that kind of stuff, where you would kind of choose like an A or B ability at each level, or wherever you got new abilities. It also very very heavily focused on using a battle map and miniatures, because positioning was a very much a big aspect in it. Whereas in like 3.5 and even 5th edition, and especially back in advanced D&D before we had virtual tabletops and all that kind of stuff, a lot of the game was played in what's called theater of the mind, where the dungeon master describes what's going on, and you and your friends or your group, hopefully you're all friends, because if it's not, it's awkward. But yeah, either way, um, you're thinking in your mind, you're envisioning it like you're reading a book. Like the everything that's happening is happening within your head. Fourth edition kind of it really encouraged having a tabletop, because there were like aiming things was a very big thing. Like it was a lot more tactical. Um, all classes from fighters to wizards had very similar structure of powers. They had at will powers, encounter powers, and daily powers. It's essentially more like playing a video game than it was um than it was playing D&D. And it uh, it defined, like, it had roles such as tank, damage dealer, and support. It really did try to make it more like an MMO. And it really didn't hit well with a lot of old 3.5 fans. It definitely didn't hit well with me. There was a lack of an open game license, which really pissed a lot of people off. I wasn't really into that whole thing at that time. It didn't really bother me. Yarhar fiddle dee, if you know what I mean. If you don't, I'm not going to explain it, because you should know by now. Um, it's it kind of failed on even its most basic principle of trying to open the game to more people, because it just alienated everyone. Old players weren't really getting into it. New players didn't really get the idea of it either, and even playing in game shops just didn't really it wasn't fun. Um it's just it just kind of sucked. Fifth edition, on the other hand, and I'm talking about the 2014 edition, not the 2024 edition. We'll get into the 2024 edition later on. Oh boy, there's going to be some Grizzle with that. But the 2020 or 2014 edition, fifth edition, that is actually where I've had most of my game experience in D&D, like playing live games. And honestly, even though 5th edition has its flaws, I do think it is one of the most successful iterations of 5th edition or of Dungeons and Dragons, which is just evident by the fact that D&D is just blown up completely. Um it also doesn't hurt that we have things like virtual tabletops like Roll20 that allow people to play online much more easier than which is much easier than getting a group of people together, trust me. If you haven't ever tried to get a bunch of people, especially a bunch of adults, to have their schedules lined up so that they can not only just sit down for 2 to 3 hours, but to show up somewhere and sit down for 2 to 3 hours. It's insane. It's just impossible. But with virtual tabletops, I could put my ass in a seat in my house, and my players could be anywhere in the world. And with the use of Discord and like Roll20, you could just have live games. Players will control their pieces from their computer, and it'll be updated for everybody else as they do it in real time. It's crazy, but fifth edition really did it. It took the idea of fourth edition, where they wanted to simplify the rules and make it easier to understand, but they scaled back the structure and allowed you more freedom to build your character the way that you wanted to build it, sort of like how 3.5 was and 3E were. And that is where 5th edition found its success. It was unlike 4th edition, it was able to bring in the new players and keep the veterans around to really keep the game going. And that's where a lot of things end up dying off, because if you create a game or anything, if you create something and it gets popular, you'll get a fan base. Eventually, you will have to keep you'll have to evolve it in a way that doesn't piss off the old fans, but also welcomes in the new people. That's how you keep things alive. And fifth edition did that. It was great. I love a lot of fifth edition. I really started hardcore DMing in fifth edition. Um, that's been a lot of fun. I've met a lot of really fun people doing fifth edition. Um, Honestly, I think it's a lot easier to DM in fifth edition than it was to ever do anything in 3.5. Don't tell my mom. Not that she would care. I don't know why I went with that, but don't tell my old dungeon masters. Let's go with that one. Um, but yeah, 3.5 was fun, and I do love going back and looking at all the old books and things from back then. Yarhar fiddle-dee-dee. But fifth edition, I've sunk a lot of money into fifth edition, but I've made some money off of fifth edition too. Fifth edition really brought about a boom in like tabletop RPGs. With I mean, it really did fuel things like virtual tabletops, like Fantasy Grounds and Roll20. It also really helped bring about things like Start Playing, which, if you don't know what Start Playing is a website that allows you to pair up with a DM and other players, and you can pay the DM to run a game for you. So you don't need to find a group of friends to get together and make one of your friends be the DM and all that. You can find a DM that's willing to for a fee run a game for you, and you can play with your friends. You can play with a whole group of random strangers. And I know that that is a that that can be a loaded topic, being a paid DM. So, you know what? Let's get into that a little bit. When things like Start Playing first came out, paying, like being paid to be a DM, that was kind of a hot button issue. There were a lot of people that really didn't like it. Um, I myself was one of those people. I never liked the concept of being paid as a DM until I tried it, but it was always something that just kind of felt weird to me. And to this day, I do private games with friends and I don't charge them, but I'll do a game on Start Playing and charge maybe like $5 to $10 a session and just have fun with it. And it has actually like it has changed my perspective. Being a dungeon master is quite a lot of work. And yeah, there's a passion to it. It's fun, but players will show up and they will sit down and they will play the session and that's where it ends. Dungeon masters have to prep the game. They have to take time out of their day in between sessions to build these stories. And yeah, you have some people can do live modules and things like that. But again, that's um like pre-made modules, like Witchlight Carnival and that sort of thing. But even then, that costs money. It costs a DM has to go and buy those books. They have to buy the virtual tabletop license. They have to do all that kind of stuff. So there's a cost to it, and there's nothing wrong with getting reimbursing that cost. If you want to get paid as a DM, that's fine. I've seen some people charge upwards of $70 to $80 per session. I will never do that myself. I don't think I'm ever good enough, but I mean, if people can get that, good for them. I would hope it comes with fully voice acted, you know, script where every character has a different voice and the there's a choir playing in the background and all that kind of stuff doing live battle music. That's worth 50, $60, $80 a session maybe, but yeah, you get what you get with me for 5 to 10. But my players seem to like it. But I've kind of evolved in that sense. And I think things like startplaying.game, which is the website, I'll put a link down below. They've really helped to expand not only D&D but all types of virtual tabletop or all types of tabletop gaming. And it's really helped get new players into it. And that's what it's all about. It's just getting people into the game and having fun. That's the one thing that we really kind of moved away from as a society, is that the idea that all this stuff is supposed to be for fun, which as we transition into the next topic, 2024 fifth edition. Whatever idiot came up with that idea, you can go fuck yourself with a rusty spoon. I'll just be frank. The whole idea, like, I mean, ostensibly they did it so that they could um update the rules and change a few things here and there, but let's be real. One, they just wanted to resell the books to everyone again because go fuck yourself. And two, it kind of came about in that era where they were finding a lot of things in D&D to be problematic. Things like race. There were people out there that were doing stupid, stupid things. And don't tell me this didn't happen, because it absolutely did. There were people that were making drawing connections between races like the Drow or Dark Elves and black people, or orcs and black people, where it was like the newest one. And that's just stupid. Anybody that thinks that those are like an orc is a racial characterization of a black person, or a drow is a racial characterization of a black person, is a dick and an asshole and should just never be allowed to touch D&D or anything ever again. That's just my personal opinion. But D&D is a fantasy world. It is a fantasy setting. It has absolutely nothing to do with real world. There are humans in D&D. There are black humans in D&D. There are white humans in D&D. There are Asian humans in D&D. There are all different types of humans in D&D. Then there are elves, gnomes, half elves, half orcs, blah 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 blah, all these different things that are separate from humans. Any idiot that is going and sitting there and saying that a orc has some kind of relevance to a real life human is a fucking retard. There, I fucking said it. I don't give a shit. You are a fucking retard. And you have ruined the fucking game that you never had any interest in playing. But beyond that, 5th edition, 2024 5th edition was another, oversimplification of the rules. Kind of in a similar way to 4th edition. Personally, I don't like it. I'm never going to pay those books. I already bought all the 2014 edition books I'll ever need. I don't need to go and rebuy the new books again. You're not getting that much money out of me. But it that's just how it works, unfortunately. It ends up just being a money cash grab, and then people are just fucking stupid. But we're still allowed to play the 2014 edition. We're still allowed to play 3.5. You can go back and play Advanced Dungeons and Dragons if you want. That's the beauty of it all. And from here, I'd kind of like to move into why D&D is so important to me. Now that the angry grizzly rant is over, we'll move into why D&D is important to me. D&D was kind of like a Kickstarter for me. Like it blew my mind and really got me super into the fantasy setting. From from there we started seeing things like the Lord of the Rings movies. Those came out around that time. All that kind of stuff, and it really just launched me into this world, this lifetime love of epic fantasy. And Dungeons and Dragons was a way that I could just get a real visceral feeling of just being there. I could be there in Middle Earth. I could roll the dice and have my character behead somebody, do fun things like that. Not that I'd ever want to do that in real life. Again, fantasy setting. It allows you to explore things that you can't in the real world. It allows you to escape, which is why this whole crap about, oh, well, these have a parallel to real life, blah, 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 and like real life issues of racism and all that. Shut up. It's a fantasy series. It's an escape from all the bullshit of real life. And if you can't escape from the problems around you into a fantasy world and you need to bring everybody else down with you, you can go fuck yourself with a rusty spoon. Because I love it when the red water flows. But I digress. It really did help me in a lot of aspects of things in my life. It did actually help me get better at math. I will put that out there. It also helped me with writing, and it it really it helped form who I am today by learning all the different various rules of D&D. It really helped me learn how to study things properly. It helped me learn to focus and break things down, and it's evolved into skills I use at my current job, where you look at a process and you learn a process, and you kind of figure out ways of, all right, well, how could this be improved? Why does this do this thing? Why does it do that thing? Like, it really helps me dive in and absorb everything. And that's truly why D&D has been such a big influence on my life. It really helped me become who I am today. And that's why I love D&D, and I'm always going to love D&D. Even the 2024 rules, blah blah blah. Eventually we'll get back to the we'll get back to the fun of it. We'll always just keep having fun with D&D. Especially now, since ironically, instead of orcs being black people, they're now Mexicans. Go look at the 2024 rulebook. I didn't make that up. But yeah, it's all right. These things happen, but it's just D&D. helped me, as I said, helped me become who I am. And being a DM, playing the game, it helps me spread that love and that joy to other people. And that is something that I will forever be grateful for. So thank you, Gary Gygax, the creator of Dungeons and Dragons. Thank you so much for bringing this game to us and making just giving me so much fun in my life and giving my friends so much fun and giving all the nerds in the world a world to escape to. You know, that's really what's important at the end of the day, because life sucks and then you die. But if you can roll a couple dice and you lop somebody's head off along the way, cast a couple spells, just escape into that fantasy world, that makes it all the sweeter. So I think that's where I'm gonna wrap it up today. It's a little shorter than the first time I did it, but you know what? It's fine. That's just how things go. But if you're still listening with me at this point, great. Love you. You're awesome. Come back for episode 3. I'm not sure what it'll be about yet, but we'll get there when we get there. Um, but yeah, this has been the weekly Grizzle, and I've been your host, Grumpy Gus, and thank you again, and have a great night.